Desiree there here, Genius Loves Company, bridging the Music Tech Connect, where everyone is genius, but musicians are my favorite. I have got a very special guest today with us, Tatiana Moroz. Now, I know you, Tatiana, from blockchain and doing some really cool things with crypto. So I've kind of followed you around a little bit. You've done some pretty impressive stuff over the last year, been very, very busy. Can you just share a little bit about yourself and what you've been working on for the last few years?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I've always used my music basically to convey an idea. And so in 2011, I found out about the Federal Reserve System, and then I became a fan of Ron Paul, which was really great because it was a mix of the left and the right, and nobody was fighting each other. It was beautiful. And then that didn't work out. And luckily at that time, I had something to look forward to, which was blockchain. And so since then, I've done quite a bit in the blockchain space, anything from having a couple different podcasts. One is about relationships, proof of love. That's the name of it. And then there's also the Tatiana show, which does more technical stuff or interviews around politics and different things in the blockchain space. And I also created the world's first artist cryptocurrency, TatianaCoin, in 2014, which resulted in a platform that I'm working with right now. So yeah, definitely keeping pretty busy.
Very, very cool. So let me ask you a question. How old were you when you first got interested in technology or computers? Like, how did you get introduced to blockchain?
So I've worked with a lot of different engineers over the years, especially after Berklee College of Music. I was managing a number of different recording studios in New York. So I appreciate all your cool gear back there. But, I didn't really see myself as anybody who appreciated technology at all. In fact, I sort of disliked it. It was only really during the Bitcoin era of my life that I started to appreciate it, because I saw that this technology could actually be used to liberate mankind. There's a lot of different, difficulties when you're trying to protest. No one really cares. It's not that effective. But when you have a technological innovation like Bitcoin, you can really have a game changer in your hands. And I think that's an amazing power to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so how old were you when you picked up your first guitar? Oh, I guess I just spoiled it, but how old were you when you started getting into music?
I have been singing as long as I can remember. I mean, I remember doing little Madonna skits in the kitchen, which I don't know if that was a really great child's role model, but uh, anyway, yeah, I've been playing guitar for a long time, since I was 16. So you'd think I'd be a better guitar player by now, but not really. I
Oh,
was always a lot better of a singer. And I love playing the guitar, but somehow I never end up having enough time to really get very good at it. And I guess maybe now during quarantine, that might be something I can look into.
well, that's actually me too. I've been a singer my whole life, and I've always, relied on, my bandmates to be the guitar player so I can sing my songs. And finally, in August of last year, I'm just like, if you're going to get serious about this, you need to accompany yourself. So I started sitting down. I'm still terrible, but I've actually been writing some songs recently, and they're starting to come out with the guitar, and that feels very good for me. Empowering, finally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is I only learned how to play guitar because my guy friends who would play for me would be really flaky. So they wouldn't show up to gigs, and I would be super stressed. And so then I thought, what, forget this nonsense. And it's good because you don't have to depend on anybody else. So I encourage everybody to pick up an instrument. Although with guitar, it's a little bit difficult because, those first few weeks while you're building up your calluses are very unpleasant. Yeah. And it's hard to make yourself do something that physically is painful. So,
yes, I agree. So I'm really curious, with the way that everything's been kind of going, what I've noticed is that there are thousands of people all over the world that have a very similar vision. And, when I hear you talk about, blockchain having the ability to liberate humanity, I thought the same thing. And in fact, I had kind of a dream about this technology, I guess probably when it first started being created. And I thought, I'm going to have to create this myself. And I had no idea what I was doing. And so when it started coming out, I started paying attention, and it's been very, very interesting watching the ebbs and flows of blockchain and Bitcoin and how it's worked. I'm curious though, because Coinbase, I think, is kind of where you launched. Is Coinbase what you used to launch your Tatiana Coin?
No. So what we used was Counterparty, which is a protocol that predated Ethereum. Ethereum had been announced in January of 2014, and they hadn't issued any kind of tokens or anything. So I went with the counterparty protocol. There were only a couple other options at that time, one of them being Mastercoin that later on turned into Omni. And so, yeah, we used counterparty. It was never something like the Tatiana coin isn't something that would go out on a large platform. It's more something for fans. So it's not a speculative token. It actually has a lot of utility, and it kind of basically connects the artist and the fan directly through the tech. So, it's not going to raise the same amount as, a regular ICO or something like that. It's very different.
So Tatiana Coin would be specifically for you and your fan base, but is this the type of infrastructure that other artists could leverage? Is that kind of your vision, or tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, Tatiana Coin is a little bit actually like the original ICO, right? Because there weren't any projects that were really doing this kind of a thing. I guess Ethereum had come along and they had raised a lot of money, but this was sort of early on and experimental. And what I really wanted to do was allow artists to create their own ecosystem. So absolutely, Tatiana Coin is just one iteration. And let's say you wanted to make your own coin, then maybe because we're friends, we can say, oh, you get 10% off of my music if you use that coin. So there's all of a sudden basically an interoperability between different ecosystems that isn't controlled by a third party. So I had a lot of problems where I would set up some kind of an account on MySpace, on Friendster, on YouTube, and all these different places, but the algorithms are constantly changing. You can't port your fans over if that becomes less popular of a platform. And I just think after a while, I get sick of being the product. Essentially, my data is what's powering Facebook. So I don't know. I just wanted to take back that control. And I think that it belongs with the artists and the fans. And of course, you need different components of the music industry. Absolutely. You can't do it all yourself. But, I think that the main part, which is the money part, which is the ownership of the music and all of that part, that really should originate with the artist and stay there as much as it can and be left to the artist's discretion.
Right. No, the way that they're changing all of the laws and the way musicians are being paid now and royalties, it's kind of a scary time if you're a musician and that's your only income. And so, my vision has always been also to empower musicians to be able to actually earn an income, do what they love, and support themselves doing it through their music, whether that be, live performances or merch sales or whatever. And so I've been trying to build an ecosystem as well. I've not connected the technology of cryptos yet because most musicians are very resistant to anything technological, like a lot of the ones that I've been in touch with. I still have a lot of musician friends that have the little $5, text phones. But what I have been doing is as I've been interviewing people, I've met so many brilliant minds all over the world. And I've met recently an infrastructure architect who has built a jukebox that is free for us, we can add musicians into this jukebox. It's already ASCAP and BMI members. So, any royalties are taken care of through that. And so we're trying to connect the businesses locally that support musicians to this app as well. So we're trying to create like a local network virtually through this app. And it's very, it sounds complicated, but it's all pretty much finished. And we're just trying to now kind of spread the awareness and get artists' music up into the app.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, and we're going to see a lot of opportunities come along now that we've had, this sort of unusual experience where we're all kept in our homes. I mean, I would hope that we're not going to have this again, but we may. And building out these different ways of keeping those relationships, no matter how much distance is between us, I think is going to be very important to people. And it's going to evolve in ways that we don't expect. So I look forward to seeing how that pops around.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the influences musically that you had growing up. What were you listening to growing up to music, and how did that influence your music today?
So, I mean, I think I had a profound influence on how I turned out because I was very interested in, well, thanks to my mother, the 60s and 70s singer-songwriters. And I really liked their anti-war message. I remember hearing Cat Stevens' Peace Train and thinking, wow, you can use a song to convey a message and to create a movement, some kind of an action or reaction from the crowd. And that's extraordinarily powerful. While I wasn't really into Pete Seeger as I was younger, I heard a story recently. And so basically Pete Seeger had, and like, I'm not a communist, and you know, for people that are not into communism, you're going to get the comments. So I'm not advocating for that. That being said, he did something really amazing. So Johnson was running for president, and he went on the Smothers Brothers, which was a really big TV show back in 68 or 67. And he sang a song called The Big Money. And it was a song basically making fun of the president. And it was an anti-war song. And even leading up to it, he had a little anti-war song medley. It was really, really powerful. And then the very next day, Johnson dropped out of the race. You know, music is extraordinarily powerful. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's been hijacked. Like, I've been very disappointed with my own generation's music. From Britney Spears onward, pretty much it's all trash. And everybody knows it. You know, we could have a couple random artists that are good, but somehow our souls are not moved. And you know, I mean, I'd be lying to say that I didn't think that that composed part of my mission, right? I think it's extraordinarily important to have a pushback against the system. I think that there's certain types of revolution music or messaging that is approved, and some of it that isn't. And all of that, in my opinion, has to come down. And I would say that that really started because I had heard those artists in the 60s and 70s. And who knows what's going to happen from now going forward if artists don't have that Cat Stevens, they don't have that Bob Dylan, they don't have that Pete Seeger, they don't have all those other people that were saying, wait a second, there's something wrong. And now you're getting what you have now, which is a lot of people who are maybe politically upset, but I'm not really sure where that is going, you know? And it's, of course, it's very controlled. Big Brother is alive and full. You know, they're not even hiding anymore. So now more than ever, I think that that kind of music is important. Like, I like to have a classical approach to songwriting. I'd say I'm a little bit country, even though I'm a Jersey girl. But, you know, I mean, like, there's definitely been other artists, you know, in the jazz genres, for example, Billie Holiday, Nina Simone, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan. Those are all incredible artists I took a lot of influence from. And then in the 60s and 70s, you know, later on in college, I started listening to Prince and to Stevie Wonder, getting a real big appreciation for some different kinds of music. But at the end of the day, I just want music that's going to move people. And not that every song is going to be a revolution song, but you know, it's gotta have a little bit of that fire that I think can't be extinguished within.
I stand with you in that, and I will tell you what, because so many of these like anthem songs keep rising up out of me. You know, it's, you know, I feel like it's time for the creators to stand up. I think, you know, there's such a push, or has been, in our, like, I'm in the Louisville cities region, you know, Louisville, Kentucky, and we've been a really big music town. But I will tell you, over the last 10 years, 15, maybe it's even 20, the places that will pay you, you have to play cover music. So nobody was supporting original music. And I saw a lot of that, you know, those original creators just be extinguished. So, you know, my vision has been to create space for music, you know, new creations, because if we don't have those Bob Dylans and those Nina Simones to write these songs, you know, I stand with you in that. We need to we need a platform that artists can get their music out and then not be robbed also, you know, or have their ideas stolen, or I don't know. So anyway, I love the fact that you have the similar mission and similar ideas. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty common thing. People want their artists to be able to have sustainable careers. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, the RA and ASCAP and BMI and all these other organizations. You know, the funny thing with those organizations is that they kind of negotiate on everybody's behalf. And maybe I don't want to participate in that. I think it's really about flexibility. You know, after we made TatianaCoin, it was as if we had built a car and we didn't have any roads. And so subsequently made token.fm, which is a platform where you can kind of build out all the features that you want. And that's the thing, right? If you want to sell your music for $10 for an album, for $20 for an album, for free the next day, you can constantly be changing that. It gives you that control. If you want to talk to your fans all the time, you can open up those lines of communication. If you want to have one-on-one chats, if you want to have long-term sponsorship opportunities, all the things that you see in all these different places where at the end of the day, you're dependent on that other platform, I think that you can centralize that. And then the key to that is, yes, sure, we're another platform, right? But the key is if you have your own coin and your community is kind of united in that way, you can't really be taken away from them. You can say, okay, well, I don't like token.fm. I can go somewhere else with my community. And that to me is extremely important. I mean, I would hope that what we build will end up being what artists want to use. But I think that concept of artists being able to own their community truly is extremely important, especially as we face more and more challenges in traditional social media.
Well, that sounds like an awesome platform for our artists to check out. So can you say it one more time? It's Token F. Say it again.
Sure, it's token.fm, but I'm going to warn people so they can sign up. Right now, we're securing some funding. So I don't want to, the whole thing is built, right? But if we don't have the marketing budget, no one's going to care. And then it's just going to be a mess. So we're looking for the next round of funding. And then when that comes in, we'll be able to onboard other artists, but they can certainly look into it. And I'd be happy to answer their questions. So they can find me at TatianaMoroz.com and always shoot me a line if they're wondering.
Okay, and I'd actually be interested in hearing more about that. Maybe I can connect some of our investors and see if this could be a global community thing that would work with us as well. So,
well, that's actually a funny comment that you make. It reminds me because when we had this done in like late 2017, we really wanted to do an ICO, and the reason was because I think that there's a lot of value in an artist-owned platform, but we were certainly discouraged by legal, and I think that continues to be a problem. Legal concerns are expensive and they're scary. So accredited investors I think are still the way to go, but I love the idea of multiple artists being able to pool their income, and who knows, maybe that'll happen at some point. I actually wanted to buy a physical location at that time too. So that would have been cool. We would have had real estate plus a crypto play. So I thought that was good, but you never know, maybe things will work out that way. Cause I certainly think of the platform that we've built as by artists for artists, and I used my own terrible experiences, all the struggles, that kind of guided our development there. I played so many gigs in Manhattan, doing all the things that you're supposed to do, making my flyers, doing your stuff. And just the music industry is so unforgiving, but it's also not just unforgiving, it's also unfair. It's not really built on anything. And then people end up feeling good or bad about themselves because they got more or less likes on Instagram. And it's like, well, maybe it was just an algorithm. Maybe they paid for bots. Maybe you, I'm not even going into the whole like sex sells angle of it, right? And that's a little bit disheartening, especially as a female artist. Like if the ladies, they want to show it off, great, work out, show that booty. But if all the artists are like that, then how do you compete in that kind of an environment? If you don't want to play in that arena. So there's a lot of things that are very kind of depressing about being an artist that I think with some tweaks and adjustments, there could be more sustainable careers. I don't think everybody needs to be Beyonce. But what I would like to see is every artist making 80 or 100 grand a year. And if you make a platform that you can grow for longer than just for 2 or 3 years while flavor of the week social media platform is popular, then I think that's an absolutely obtainable goal. Look, if you get 1,000 fans, they give you $100 a year, $100,000 a year, boom, done. Now you can actually afford to send your kids to preschool or whatever it is that you need to do. You could set up a home studio. You could play some local gigs. And, I think that that's great.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as sexy as being a superstar, but I don't know, being a superstar is valuable in one weird fantasy in your mind. But in reality, I don't think that that's particularly healthy. I don't think that the people in Hollywood their souls are fulfilled. You know, I don't
No,
know.
no, it's so that goes into a rabbit hole that we don't even have time for. But yes, I agree that the existing establishment is not something I would ever want to be a part of. I would never want to subject my children to the existing establishment. And
Right.
I think that it is definitely a time for new pathways and new opportunities, and people like you, visionaries, you know, who've uh, put through the blood and the sweat and the tears of experience to say, hey, I want to see a different way, and then actually creating something. It's pretty exciting. So I was very excited to know about you whenever my crypto friends were like, you've got to meet Tatiana. And so it was pretty exciting to hear that there was a fellow musician who understood blockchain technology and then had a vision of how to leverage it.
You know, sometimes I don't understand everything, but yes, I'm getting a lot better on the technical side. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I think that musicians have such a critical part of the blockchain and Bitcoin community because we can be the evangelists. If you work for a bank, you can't be critical of bank policy. If you work for a large corporation, you can't question some of the relationships between government and large corporations. So, um, I think that the artists are just as important now as they were in the 60s and the 70s. I just hope that there's a place for their voices to be heard. And that does continue a bit of, you know, it's like a race, right? Before they shut everything down, you have to build up these other communities. And you know, for now we're okay.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have a definite follow-up conversation, because now that you've got my brain whirling again, I'm going to have to follow up with you and have another conversation about all of this.
That sounds great. I love that very much.
Yeah.
Cool.
So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I'm going to do some research, and we'll be reaching out again very soon.
That sounds good. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Bye now.
Tatiana. All right. Bye-bye.